Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Sedaru Live. Got Andrew Hargraves here with me again. Andrew, how are you today?
I'm good. Glad to be back.
Great. We're going to be talking today about leak and break management. It's really focused on Sedaru Outage today, which is, Sedaru Outage is really one of my favorite tools in the Sedaru toolkit here. Because it's really focused all around how do I deal with main breaks and leaks, right? And main breaks and leaks tend to be an incredibly disruptive event for utilities, right? Because they involve customer service. They involve, obviously, all your distribution folks. If it's large enough and it has hydraulic impacts and your treatment, your production folks get involved, it's really can be something that you need a lot of coordination to be able to tackle really well. And I think Sedaru Outage does a great job with that. So we're going to be it's going to be about a 30-minute long webinar today. We've got about 20 minutes of content, and really would encourage everybody to ask as many questions as you have and to keep us on our toes. These webinars are always better the more questions that you have. So you'll see in that Zoom interface, there's a button that says Q&A. Hit on that Q&A button and you can fire away and post your questions in there, and we will get those answered as quickly as possible and as we kind of go through the presentation here. If you haven't already, take a moment, follow us on your favorite social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We're on all of those. These webinars are also making their way onto YouTube, and so there's a Sedaru YouTube channel that if you subscribe to, you can also get notifications as new videos and pieces are posted there. So lots of good content to share with you, so be on the lookout for all of those pieces. And if you didn't know already, tomorrow there's another free webinar, not run by us, but by this group that's doing an online water asset management conference. So one of our engineers, Matt Sellers, is going to be talking about risk-based capital planning and really presenting there a project that we did with Danvers, Massachusetts, and how they're using the Sedaru tools for doing risk-based asset management. So you can see the link here on the screen here under waterassetmanagementhere.com and register. And that's tomorrow. That's 2:30, and I don't know if that's Eastern time or Pacific time, but if you go in there and log in and sign up, you can see that. So should be a great presentation. We talk a lot about drops, and I like to kind of always remind everybody where what we're talking about is really where it's gonna where it falls on this platform, right? And this is really neat because the outage piece really gets us moving into how do we optimize our response to things and how do we quickly and efficiently handle dealing with main breaks. So we're going to show you these digital workflows. We're going to talk about how that happens in real time, and you'll be able to see that. Andrew and I are going to kind of go back and forth a little bit, and then but then I think what you'll see out of it is really a strong way to be able to optimize your response to main breaks and leak management. So, Andrew, what's been your experience in seeing how utilities deal with their main breaks? I mean, you've got experience on the sort of field operations side with valves, GIS. What do you see out there?
Yeah, to add on to what you said, if they get significant enough, it can involve management, it can involve PR, right? And sadly, it might involve the local news. And of course, that's the exact instance that we want to avoid. So getting pertinent information quickly and easily digestible into the hands of field personnel who really are your front line there on the street is vital in order to reduce either the time that this outage is occurring over or the footprint that is out of service right now, or preferably both. So the frontline folks or the field personnel are really the ones who I think can benefit from what we're going to see today.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Well, I'm going to start here in the outage application. I'm running this from from a web browser. This runs as an HTML5 application, so you can open it up in really just about any web browser on just about any device that you want. We don't have it. We have it limited on the phones today because there's kind of a lot going on. So the phone to try to use it on the phone is a little bit tight. So we recommend, whether you're using a laptop or a tablet, something with a little bit of a bigger screen. But what you're going to see when you log in is a portal into all of your main breaks and leaks. Okay, and what I'm displaying here now is completed events that are in here. And so you can come in and you can see, what's my main break history look like? What are all my recent events? What's been going on? And I've got this incredible historical record of all my events. So I can come in here, I can click on one of these events, and it's going to zoom me into that location, and I can see exactly what had happened at that location and what the kind of current status is and all the history of that. So if you think about your customer service folks who are oftentimes in the dark on exactly what's going on sometimes on these things, this becomes an incredible way for them to see what's happening. And then historically, when your engineers want to start using main break data to go into capital planning projects and other things, you've got this great record of how that works. But let's talk about how a new event might work in here. And so I'm going to go here up in the top here where it says start. Okay. And we try to make this as intuitive as possible, because every time you're asking your field folks to use technology and record things and to do that, you really have to make it simple for them. And especially on main breaks, right? They can be emergency type events, and it's got to be really simple. It's got to be easy for them to be able to use. So when I want to start a new event, I come here and I say new outage event, right? And so I'll hit on that. I can search in here if I want. So I could use like a cross street. I could use an address. It's really, it doesn't matter. But then I can also just use the map and pick a spot on the map and use that for my main break if I want as well too. So I'm just going to go to this spot right here on this little section of this, and we're going to go see what happens here. So I put an X on the map. You'll notice when I put that X on the map, I can put that exactly where I want to on the break. And I can put that X right on there, and it's going to put on the exact location. So the main break location doesn't have to just be tied directly to the main break. It doesn't have to be tied directly to the centroid or of the pipe, right? So I have that on there. And then I can kind of give it a category. I can kind of say, is this something big? Is this something little? And we'll get more specific there. But then what I'm going to do is say run simulation. And as I run that simulation, what it's going to now do for me is it's going to look for what are all the valves that are going to have to be closed to isolate this particular break, right? And so we'll see here where I picked, there's actually quite a few valves that have to be closed in this. So it's immediately running this simulation, and it's showing me, here are the valves that have to be closed. And then here's all my customers that are going to be affected by this particular break or leak. And this break's kind of interesting in here, right? Because I've got a dead end over on the right-hand side where you can see folks that are affected. And I've got, quite a few valves that looks like this whole neighborhood's going to be shut off from this break in here. So I'm glad that we picked something kind of interesting here. So what I can do is I'll start by saving the event. And typically you're going to put an event address or give it some kind of label, but I'm just going to call it a Sedaru live demonstration here. And then I can fill out all the other information around my break, right? And this is designed that you could be doing this in the field, or I could be doing it in the office as well too. Once I save it, then other folks are going to be able to see it, right? So Andrew's going to be playing the role of our field staff today. So what he's going to see pop up on his screen is a new event that he's going to be able to look at and respond to. And there's fields in here to be able to track all the sort of related information that you might want to have in there in terms of that you need to share with other parts of the organization. And I'll see all that information in there as I fill those pieces out. You'll also notice a button down here to relocate. And really what that's helpful for is if you have, let's say you log this leak or break event from the office based off of a water in the street complaint. And it turns out that when you get out to the field, the break location is actually in a different spot. I can relocate the break location there without having to create a new incident or anything like that. And obviously that could affect what the valving of this particular item might look like. It also is building a timeline for me on the bottom here. And you notice sort of all the steps that we're going to have. We got to think about a one-call notification, valves, customers, repair, etc. And so we're going to have those pieces out there and kind of built in a timeline so I can see it and easily manage it. So let's get started on this. I'm going to do my one-call notification here. This can be set up to just have a phone number if you've got to call in your emergency locates, or I also can go and create a web ticket on it. It varies from place to place. But what's nice is once that is done, I can sort of check the box off and say it's done, right? Because obviously, right, Andrew, the last thing we want to do is get into this and then realize, oh shoot, we got to wait to dig because people haven't gotten their emergency locates done, right? So you're pretty quickly wanting to get that piece marked out. And then what we're going to do is now we're going to start looking at the valves here. So I'm going to click on this, and it's now showing me I've got 5 valves that we're going to have to close here. There's one inoperable valve in here. And so what's nice here is we're actually tying into all your valve statuses, right? So if you have an existing valve exercising program in place, whether you're using Sedaru or using another platform to kind of manage the status of all those valves, that's going to be pulled in from here, and you're going to be able to use that information here to be able to work with your area here. But let's see, here's a common piece that might happen though, is I've got this other valve here where I've got this broken valve, and let's say that valve is also not operable, right? So I can come here, I click on that valve, and we'll say, no, it's not operable, right? Maybe it's flooded, maybe it's paved over, maybe I can't, it spins free, whatever. I can come in, mark it as inoperable, and I'll hit save. And what's going to happen now is it's going to automatically update the simulation for me. Okay, it's going to look for the next set of valves that are going to have to be turned to operate that particular break or leak. And I can kind of do that for, I might have that happen in other spots of here as well too. If I go and I mark another valve as inoperable, you're going to see it'll continue to do that. So in the operation here, you can kind of do that all throughout and manage those valve closures there. So now I can start closing valves. Once I do that, I'll come in here and we'll go ahead and I'll start marking valves as closed. So we'll say this valve is closed. And what you're going to see is that the valve statuses are going to start changing. So this starts turning to red, and on the map, you're going to be able to see that updated location there. So Andrew, do you want to take over here and kind of show a perspective from the field and go through and close more of these valves for us?
Okay.
Perfect.
There we go. So like you said earlier, Adam, right? I could just run this from any browser on any device, and here it is inside of Chrome on my iPad, and I can see your demo outage right there. But I'm going to run this through the dedicated iOS app instead. And again, same thing, right? Oops, I can see your outage. That one right there.
And I'll just mention, one of the nice things about running it from the app as opposed to the browser is you get some additional functionality like location services persist and some other pieces, so that because one of the things that Sedaru will let you do is see field crew locations in real time. And so if they're using the app, I can see that information up there on the fly.
Exactly, and that's the big attraction for me, right? As we said earlier, in order to try to help out field personnel during this pretty stressful time when we've got a potentially big outage, in order to reduce the amount of time that it takes for us to isolate this break and or reduce the footprint of outage customers, and make sure that everybody's in the right place doing the right thing. And if they do come across some of the examples you've shown here, which is either I can't find this valve, it's paved over, or maybe it's just parked under a car and I can't get to it, or it's inoperable. I can see that in real time. I can see my other colleagues working those valves and shutting them down as this happens. And you can see this sort of cool little timeline along the bottom here as we complete each step. So I can see that your event happened. I can see that you've checked off the one call box. And just like you said, I can see all of the valves in question here. I can see you've already closed a couple and you've already found a couple that are inoperable. And I'm going to go and I'm going to try to shut down this 8-inch right here. It is operable. I am now going to close it. And I'm going to, I don't know, make some numbers up here. But again, like Adam said, this is referring back to other valve assessments that you've done through regular field force workflows, or it's going to write this information back to your Sedaru history. So you're not doubling up on effort here. You're only adding to that depth of knowledge about your assets. So as I step through and I close these, you can see them reflect on the map. They start to turn red. I'm going to close this one. Oops, sorry, can't walk and chew gum at the same time here.
Hey, while you're closing those valves, Andrew, let me ask you a question. What does this require geometric network or other sort of advanced kind of Esri networks to be able to use this?
It doesn't require a geometric network, no. So it's easier to get deployed, and essentially we're looking at some simple connectivity rules around this, which are a lot easier to sort of get up and running with out of the box. Like I said,
yeah, and it's interesting because one of the things when we build Sedaru tools, we really are building them all with the idea that your data is never going to be perfect, right? So if you're always kind of waiting on all your information and all your data to be perfect, you're always going to be waiting a really long time. So we've got some of the largest utilities in the country that are using this. That quite frankly, started with messy sets of data. And it's interesting, and GIS data is really interesting in that the more that you use it, the better it gets, right? So you use a tool like this and you're tracking valve statuses and you're doing all those pieces, your data will continue to get better and better. And so, using a tool like Sedaru obviously is a big part of that.
And that's a great point that I've seen too many customers be fearful of sort of leaning heavily on their GIS data because it might not be perfect.
Yeah.
And like you said, it probably is never going to reach that state. And so a couple of things are important to remember. One is it's okay to have mistakes in your data. But more importantly, what you're saying is also true, which is if you have workflows around it so that field personnel can fill in those data gaps, and your GIS folks have mechanisms to quickly grab that data and update that data, then you're in a much better position than you would be without those tools there. I've got all my valves closed. You can see that I throttled one of them, which is again another option that we have, right? Life isn't binary out there on the street. It's not open or it's closed. Sometimes, we live in a gray area. So now that I have all of these closed, I can hit my respond panel and I can jump back to the timeline or the storyline of our outage here. You can see that our valve section is turned green, meaning we've closed everything down, and we're ready to move on to the next step of notifying customers. You want me to do that, Adam?
Yeah. Go ahead, and let's walk.
I'm out here. I could be knocking on doors if I'm in the area, so I can mark individually which customers that I've seen. So maybe I saw this person, maybe I saw this person, or if we've done a sort of mass outreach, maybe we've hung some door hangers, or maybe we've used some other notification system to alert everybody on our affected list here. I don't have to go one by one. I can just hit the button at the top there. And just like with the 811 section, I can sort of check that box off and I can indicate that that step is completed. And again, if I go back to my timeline, I can see a little green person telling me.
And it's also worth noting, one of the things I can do here too is I can export the list of customers that have been affected and can load that into any kind of reverse 911 or auto dialer system, Or you might have your customer service staff just making some phone calls as well too. And so they could on their end also be checking off, okay, we've notified this person, notified this person, notified this person. So what I tend to see from like a top level management perspective sometimes with breaks is they just want to know, how are we doing from a customer service perspective, right? Are we managing expectations properly? Are we telling people what's going on? Are we notifying people that need to be notified? And then the converse of that is, or do we need to notify people that aren't affected by this, right? Because you hate to start issuing boil water advisories and all these things broadly if you don't need to, right? And so this is really designed to help pinpoint that for you.
Exactly. And it's a great planning tool, right? So we can understand if we are going to do a plant shutdown, we can understand how many folks we're going to impact. We can get that information to them earlier about when they're going to be out, or like you said, that there might be a boil water notice after the effect. So again, this isn't just for use in an emergency situation.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So let me, Andrew, let me take control back here, and I'll talk through the repair steps here. So we're back here on my screen, and you see, everything's kind of been updated as we're doing that. And I come here to do the repair, and I can drill into the details of that. And so I can come in and I can fill in appropriate information about that repair. Let's say the normal pressure, is about 75 PSI. Let's say as we get in there and look at it, we know we're looking at a split of some kind, and maybe it's a 1/2 inch, by 3 inches, right? And so what's neat here is that it's actually using just standard hydraulic orifice equations, but it's doing the calcs for you to understand what would be my estimated water loss on this, right? So this is about a 300 to 400 GPM size leak. We closed all the valves here in 10 minutes or so. So we're not, I guess in and around then. And so that happened really quickly. The water loss was really small, but a break that you had open for hours or that kind of thing, I can have a better estimate in there. So you're not making your field crews have to just kind of do wild guesses on things, and all that information is getting stored in a database. And so you really can have sort of better tracking of all your non-revenue water numbers in here as well too. So I'll save that. And then that repair information is all getting saved in here. There's also a spot up here for attachments. So if I want to load pictures of things, which, certainly before you're backfilling or anything, you want to put pictures of it. If there's property damage, if there's other information around the break, you'd want to go ahead and add those attachments. And so that's where, if I'm using the tablet in the field, it can do all those pieces there. Andrew, if you, on your end, you want to start just reopening some valves there, and I'll kind of walk through a couple other steps.
Sure.
So as we're starting to reopen some valves and restore service, we also can come in and do a flush. So if I'm going to go choose a hydrant that I want to flush from, I can do that on the map. And you see as I move my mouse, it's going to kind of help me select the hydrant. Same idea in here, that I can come in here and choose what I'm doing for a hydrant flush, put my information in, record that piece in here as well too. So I'll go ahead and I'll save that hydrant flush information in here as well too. And so Andrew's working on getting valves reopened for us here too, but I want to share a couple of other kind of things with this here. And you'll notice as he's doing that, you'll see the valve status is kind of updated on my screen. So this one here just went from red to black, right? So again, like, you're seeing real-time information as people are completing their work in the field. So you might have 2 or 3 crews working on this valve. And let me mention here too, we're getting towards the bottom half of the hour here. So if you have questions, now's a real good time to kind of get those questions in here. So we'll try to keep this to about 30 minutes. So use that Q&A button there to do that. As I come over here to this last tab, the share tab, there's a couple things I can do here. One, you've got the ability that you can publish the outage event to a web portal. So everything we're looking at here is designed to be internal. to your utility. So you're not necessarily sharing all this information with everybody out in the public, but I can choose to send it to a web portal that's going to basically publish out on an Esri service the information that you want to show to the public around the break. And so you can really kind of control that piece of it there. And then what I've got here then too is the outage summary. And so the outage summary is pretty cool in that this is going to generate a really nice PDF report for me of exactly what the report here is going to have in it. So let me see that. Oh, it's popping up as a PDF here. Hang on a second. Let's see. Let me grab that. I have to grab the report here. It stuck it somewhere I didn't want it to go. Let me answer a question here. So while I'm grabbing that, one of the questions was, is there a chat section where the office and the field crews can communicate in real time? Which is a great question. So yeah, there is actually. So and let me, here's our outage report. So let me talk about this and I'll answer that question. So you've got this outage report here, and the outage report's really cool in that it's going to give me information about my break, right, in here. You see the event title is up at the top. It's going to tell me all the customers that are affected. It doesn't give me the full event duration yet because we weren't quite done with the event when I ran the report. Andrew was still finishing up on some of the valves here. We hadn't fully restored service. Any information that I fill out is going to show up in here as well too. And then I'm going to see a summary of all the valves that were closed, all the customers that were affected, and whether they were notified or not, and if they were, what time were they notified. So you get a really nice kind of summary of everything that happened with the break, all the information about that particular main. It's going to pull all the GIS information in there that's related to it, et cetera. So you've got this now really nice kind of marked in history PDF that's going to have all the information about the break. I do have the ability here to, and built into the Sedaru application is what's called UCOM. And so UCOM allows me to actually come in and send messages to people. So I could come in here and send a message to somebody. Say I'm from the field and I wanted to let somebody in customer service know something that was going on. I can just go ahead and do that. And then they could, I could send Kevin a message and then he could respond to me and you can kind of go back and forth on those things. Or I can send an email right from here and do that right, send that right to somebody's email address as well too. So pretty straightforward there. All right, good. Andrew, did we miss anything in this demo?
I don't think so. This was just a quick highlight overview. But again, I just want to drive home that we spend a lot of time talking to field personnel in order to make life simple when you're out there in the street. To not have you peering down at an iPad and tapping away, hitting unnecessary buttons or clicks while you're standing in the middle of the road in a potentially dangerous situation is something that we understand is an important. So you can hopefully see here that this is a pretty intuitive interface. It's really simple to use and really helps you collaborate as a team in order to get this break isolated, shut down, and repaired quickly and effectively.
Absolutely, absolutely. One other question that popped up in here is where did the aerial backgrounds for this come from? You want to just talk a little bit about that, some of that from the GIS perspective?
These are all Esri base maps. We are an Esri partner, and so that's what you're looking at there. And like any one of our other products, you can rely on that choice of Esri base maps that you get to populate the background of what you're looking at.
Yeah, which is constantly evolving on the Esri side. I mean, that's one of the things they've done a really good job at is the options for what you're going to see for base maps and aerial views, and all of that continues to get better and better. And another question that came in here, so the communication, can that be to customers or is that through another program? So really, yeah, so Sedaru is really designed as that internal tool, and then we want to have hooks for ways for you to communicate with customers. So you've got that push to web portal. I've got the ability to export my customers notified and be able to tie that into like a reverse 911 or other system. So Sedaru is not designed to do the direct customer communication. And I'll tell you one of the reasons for that too is notifying customers, having all of the right contact information to get a hold of people is not a trivial process, right? So you're going to have those things typically tied in through a CIS system, in a whole variety of ways. And so maintaining and managing that's going to be your own kind of separate process within the utility. So we just want to be able to easily tie into that. All right, well, good. Lots of good questions from everybody. Thanks again for your time on the webinar today. Everybody's going to get a follow-up email from the webinar. Happy to dig in and answer more questions for you. Happy to set up a customized information session for you as well around this. Let's see, one other last question that just came in. Yes, does the event information tie back to a work order? Great question. So in a couple ways, there's a couple ways to sort of handle that. One, if you're using Sedaru as your work order asset management system, which a lot of folks are, then this is all getting sort of tied in with all of that information that you're going to see in Omni. And my broken valves can be flagged, and I can create work orders around those, right? If you're not using Sedaru as your work management system, all this information is all getting written into an Esri geodatabase format, and so as long as your existing work order management system is also able to read and communicate with Esri as well, then you've got the ability to utilize all that within your work order management system as well too. So it kind of depends on the system you're using, but one of the ideas with Sedaru is we want to make sure that we're not creating new data silos within the organization, and so this can easily be tied in with everything that you're doing there. All right, very good. Andrew, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody for your time and attention today, and we will. There's the asset management presentation tomorrow if you have time to join that, and then stay tuned for upcoming future webinar information from us as well. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe out there. Talk to you soon.